The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, the Biden administration is aiming for 40% of electricity from solar by 2035. That's awesome news. Brownfields to Brightfields, we have a project of the week. It is Solar Star in Urbana, a 4 megawatt AC project. It was the first project I ever walked. Recycling 100% of solar panels? Could be. We all want and need that. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour, my co-host, John Weaver. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tim, I hope you're having a nice week. Mine is hectic, but it's moving. So
I'm all amped up now, John, because we're having this debate about language and what is going on in DC, and it's so confusing. So I hope we can bring some clarity to our listeners about what is going on in DC. And you've written a good story. Mm-hmm. And there's more information coming out of the White House, but it is confusing, right? Because there's the infrastructure bill that is now being considered. And then there's this budget reconciliation bill, which is a much bigger bill, but includes real chops for the solar industry. So we're going to be talking about that. So stick around.
Yep. Cool. That's my favorite topic of the week. I just want to let you know, that's the one I put at the top of the list. I like the 40% number. It's really shiny. That 40% number. So, first off, so we have infrastructure, we have reconciliation. These are all things I'm learning new. So obviously, I'm not an expert at anything. And we have these fact sheets coming out every couple of weeks by the White House going through details. So it is kind of a mishmash of things. So first, this document was cool that it came out a couple days ago, the 17th. And within it, they talk about getting the United States to 40% of our electricity from solar. And that's pretty cool. And there's actually a Department of Energy brief that when you get to it, it's that document there. It's probably also at the end of the form. And they get into a lot more details. But the biggest thing is to get the United States to 40% electricity from solar, we're going to have to install a terawatt of solar power, roughly. And that's if our electricity stays flat from today. Going through 2035, if we add 50 million electric cars, we may jump 10%, 20%.
Let me stop you there. A terawatt of solar, that is 10 times what we have installed to date. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And we'd have to do that in 15 years.
Yes. And is that a reasonable expectation of our industry to grow 10x in 15 years?
Well, Timothy, that's a real big question. Roughly speaking, mathematically, if we were to start about where our capacity that we're deploying right now is 25 gigs, in the 15th year, we'd probably have to install 150 gigs, because to do 900 plus gigs, we have to average like 70. And 70, when we're starting at 25, we got to ramp. We can't do 70 this year. So our industry is going to have to grow 6x from this year.
We were back and forthing on Twitter about this, right? Or on LinkedIn.
Yep.
But the compound annual growth rate to get us there is something like 12 or 12.5%.
Yeah. So when I did my original math to get us to say 30% solar, I did my equation at 12.5% growth. And that got us from 20 to 100 megawatts in 2035 or 2030. And then I, played with the math. So it's a little bit bigger. It's probably like 14% growth annual to get us to that number. So it's between 13 and 15%, I think, to get us from our current number to 140 gigs installed in 2035.
Yeah. So it's ambitious. And we the IPCC report that came out last week clearly says, look, humans, we're in a code red situation. That is the language that is being used now. We have to do a 180. We have not been reducing our carbon footprint as a global society. It's just been ticking up, right? And now we need to drastically tick it down by 2050, which we are just deer in the headlights as a species. The good news is we have the technology. We just need to get a lot of it out there in the wild.
Yep. Got to build the factories, got to build the supply chains, got to build the mines, everything's got to be built up. So
we don't need 40%. We don't need 40% efficient solar panels though.
No, we don't. We just got to build the infrastructure. We got to build the machines and the factories and the mines to build the infrastructure. Yeah. The infrastructure, technically, we have the hardware already. But what's cool is that as we progress, it will get better. And that's going to. Yeah. So here's the four main pieces that I saw from the U.S. Senate's top line for the coming budget reconciliation. The first is that they're thinking about creating a clean electricity payment program, which pays utilities to go from dirty to cleaner. And it doesn't care about where in the process they are. So if you're 90% fossil fuels, they're okay with it. Just get to 80. Now, they don't necessarily even want every utility to get to 80. They want all utilities to get to 80. So that's how it's structured. That's cool. The second item was related to the solar tax credit. The language out there currently is that it's going to be 30% again, and it's going to be a direct pay. Do you know what direct pay is versus pure tax credit?
I don't. Please explain that.
With a tax credit, you apply it against your taxes. If you had taxes that you paid, instead of paying those, you'll get that cash back. If you have leftover, it goes against next year. If you don't ever pay taxes, then you can't make use of it. With a direct pay, it's the same first step. You take your tax credit, you apply it against your tax liability. And then if you have leftovers, it comes back as a check. So one, if you have no tax liability at all, you're retired, you get 100% of the tax credit back as a check. If you're that's big. That's like the grant way back in the day, except it's going to take a little longer to come because it doesn't come to you until you file your taxes. The grant back in the day came like 3 to 4 months after you completed the project. Whatever.
But many businesses can't use the ITC because of how they're structured. But you're saying that under this new proposal, they would be able to use it?
If you have zero tax liability this year, you build the solar project, you apply it against your taxes, you get back 100% of the tax credit as a check. Mm-hmm. If you're building a big project like you guys deal with, a 4 meg AC, that project has a single entity as an owner, and it's an LLC. And that LLC is probably newly created. It has no tax liability anywhere. Now that new solar power project can get back the 30% tax credit next year and leave the depreciation inside of the project to apply against the project's revenue. And this way, you don't have to find tax equity partners anymore. That's going to be really significant. Really significant.
Yeah, I've seen some news that there's kind of a shortage of tax equity, isn't there?
I'm hearing that in the news. Yeah, I haven't experienced it, but I hear it in the news. Yeah, I'll say this. So there's always people begging for projects. So there's always people trying to buy it. And all these people always seem to think they can get their tax credits. I don't have to deal with it day to day. So I can't speak to it explicitly.
Yeah. And then there's something called the Clean Electricity Payment Program. What is that about?
Oh, that was the one we covered already. That's the one where they're trying to set up the utilities that are dirty and move them toward clean. And they're going to build like an 80% on average for the whole USA to get to 80% free energy, clean electricity. And they're going to pay utilities for the clean energy they generate to motivate them to build more clean energy because you'll get paid for it. And the structure of it is supposed to be beneficial for everybody, meaning that they tried to be smart in how they structured it. I wonder if certain pieces of it annoy me, but the logic is we're not going to penalize people starting from a low point. So if you got like 80% coal, Nebraska. You guys can move forward toward clean. We'll pay you extra for it. You don't even have to get to 80%. You can only get to 60 because California is going to be at 90% by then, and the averages will work out. And so I don't know if you heard the clean energy standard where they were saying, okay, all electricity has to be clean, 80%. They didn't want to institute that because one, I don't think it fits within a budget proposal. So instead they said, okay, using this budget, let's try and put in a different type of clean energy standard. And so that's what this is. It's a different technique of forcing, pushing, motivating, giving a carrot to utilities to move toward clean.
And then this manufacturing credit, I don't understand that either. It has to do with incentivizing manufacturing in the United States, or
specifically for polysilicon, then wafers, then solar cells, then assembly. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the article, you can see the monies they would pay to each unique item. And so they're saying X amount of dollars, they'll get a tax credit per kilogram of poly. Yeah, there it is.
But this is about stuff being made in the US, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So we're trying to onshore more of the manufacturing process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is good, right? It's a liability that's we're so dependent on China and other countries in Southeast Asia for all of the solar panels that we're consuming here in the United States. We do have some manufacturing in the US. Q-Cells has a plant that's doing panel assembly. Of course, we have First Solar. We used to have SunPower, no longer.
I haven't had them for a while, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, the industry has maybe bottomed out, and now it's going to start coming back if we can get this legislation passed, right?
That's the goal. This legislation I kind of like. It's just because it's neat the way it's structured. It's somebody who did think about the whole supply chain. Like a politician from Georgia is thinking about the whole of the supply chain. Maybe it's because he's got Hanwha Q-Cell in his backyard, and he's got SK, a battery manufacturer, working with Ford in his backyard. This is the same guy. We spoke about it a month or two ago, but this is the same guy that helped fix the patent lawsuit. I think it was between LG and SK, where SK was sued for patent infringement by LG, and LG won. And judge said, hey, you're not allowed to do that anymore. And the factory for Ford was suddenly on hold. So this guy literally got on the phone with the president of LG, United States Trade Office, SK. They went back and forth. They ended up negotiating like a $1 billion royalty payment and other items. I don't remember the details, but it's Ossoff, Senator Ossoff from Georgia. And he's the one that also put in this solar manufacturing tax credit, which is, it's just cool to see the thoughts that way. I hope it gets through, if only because I want to be able to argue with people who bring up all the stupid things about, it's American panels. It's like, you know what, dude, we're a global society. 99% of what you buy has pieces from all over the world. Get over it. It's 2021.
Well, I also toe that line. It is a global industry that we're in. But if for some reason we see this with the, now that the US wants to punish the Chinese for using forced labor in Xinjiang, is that the name of the province? Mm-hmm. Right. So we're going to stop the import of solar panels made in Xinjiang. Well, that's a huge percentage of the global supply chain, isn't it?
So we've said that we're not going to allow solar panels that contain polysilicon made by one company, Hoshine. And Hoshine is the company right now that we pointed out, and they make about 14% of global polysilicon. And of their volume that has come to the United States, from what I've read, about 500 megawatts worth over a couple of years. So that's the current legislation. How much further they go, I don't know. But right now, the issue is right now is not that they make a lot, it's that we don't know how to trace it. We don't yet have protocols in place saying, okay, this product was made here and it went to this factory and went into those panels. The product that's in these panels was made here and it came to this place. We don't have that stuff going on yet.
Oh, I disagree. I think Clean Energy Associates makes their living doing this. We'll have to ask Andy Klump. I would love to get Andy to come on the show. I mean, he came on the solar podcast, but we need an update on this situation from Andy. So let's leave it there. I want to move on to the project of the week, which I've been wanting to show off for a couple weeks now. This is not a Continental project. This is a Tim Montague. I walked the Urbana landfill back in 2016. Okay, this is a closed city landfill right next to downtown Urbana. It's capped and it's closed. They're not taking new waste, right? It's a municipal waste dump. And now they've built a 4 megawatt AC project on top of this landfill. Here's a drone shot of the site, which is, you still see in the upper right-hand corner here that there's still some modules to go on.
Yep.
But you can see that this is a fixed tilt ballasted array. And those little white mounds you see are piles of gravel, and the piles are ginormous. They're 4 or 5 feet tall. I was taken aback, and if I can, I'll show a close-up of some of those. But Urbana issued an RFP, in, 2017, and then SunPower was the winner. They were the chosen developer to do a PPA, and then they sold the project to NABCEP, and NABCEP is the long-term asset owner and contract holder and construction company. So they're the GC on this project. And it's a beautiful, beautiful brownfield to brightfield solar project right here in the heart of Urbana. And I'm so excited about brownfields to brightfields because you really cannot do anything with a closed landfill. If for anybody who doesn't know, landfills are full of all kinds of toxic stuff, and that's why you really can't do anything with them. You can't build housing on them. You can build a park on them. A playing field, for example. Sometimes cities will do that, but building a solar field on a closed landfill is just a great repurposing of a landfill. So beautiful project, and it's nice to see it finally come to fruition.
I like how they had 2 solar racks separated from the whole thing, just sitting in the grass. It's like they built like a test system.
Oh yeah, that was a very small project that they did a couple years prior with a developer that I know up in northern Illinois that's no longer in business. But and interestingly, so it's like a 7 kW array, and it was a PPA also, which is kind of laughable, right? I mean, 7 kW is the average residential system in Illinois. And so it feeds into a small maintenance shed that the city runs that you can see there. And but I want to get to, I had a few close-up shots that maybe I could show as well. Yeah, let's do this. So here you can see the ballast blocks a little better, the concrete ballast blocks.
You see giant piles of gravel relative to the size of a truck.
Yeah. I was really taken aback. And I guess, that has to do with leveling out the array, right? And you can see that, how this is still rolling pretty well. It's got much more ups and downs than your typical flat ground solar array, certainly. So that's one of the challenges, is that this site was not flat. It was not smooth. And it was also covered with a lot of woody material. So they had to do quite a bit of clearing and grubbing. But it's a landfill, so you can't disrupt the cap too much. You have to tread lightly, so to speak.
Literally.
Yes. There's that little 7 kW array, which goes into the barn here on the right.
That's cool. They need to do some tree trimming right in front of it.
Yeah. I'm with you there. There you see the racking just waiting for modules.
Nice.
And this project is part of the Solar for All program in Illinois. So it is specifically targeting low to moderate income residents. So the off-takers, it is a community solar project, but the off-takers have to fall into that low to medium income, which is also nice because, let's face it, solar can be a challenge for low to medium income consumers. And this Solar for All program that we have in Illinois, which is a parallel universe to the adjustable block program. And so it's part of this equity and justice movement that we see across the country to expand access to all populations. And with that, let's get back to the news.
South Korea doing some
South Korea.
recycling. Yep.
South Korea has developed a new technique for recycling solar modules. What's the story, John?
So the key here is the silicon is being turned back into solar cells. And they took 72 damaged old commercial panels and they made silicon. Prior, we've been able to recycle 95% of solar panels, but we always have to grind them up. And then the product is I've never read about it going back to polysilicon. I've always read about it being ground up, the metals extracted. But this time they've been able to, like it says, in a non-destructive technique, and I think that means not grinding it up in the dust. They've been able to, I don't know though, it doesn't say specifically, but they've been able to take the polysilicon and turn it into solar cells. And that's cool because people have been complaining about that, saying, oh, that's not real recycling. That's just, it's not reusing. It's this, it's that. Well, great. The next argument has fallen. And you know what? We're still way early. Like, for instance, look at that second to the last paragraph. They talk about the number of panels that will be discarded in 2032. We're still way early. The fact that people are barking about this is probably lucky for us, that we get a chance to learn and upgrade and better our techniques when the volumes are still small.
Well, and that's just, that number is just in Korea. It says 27,627 tons of panels would be discarded domestically in 2032, just in Korea. That is a lot of solar panels. And you can imagine, in 20 years, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of tons here in the United States. We're a much bigger place than Korea. Isn't Korea like the size of, it's not even as big as California, is it?
No, but it's got like 70, 60, 50 million people.
Yeah.
Korea population. Let's check it out. South Korea population is 51.
Yeah.
And so that's about 1 million solar panels.
That 27,000 tons is 1 million solar panels?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Roughly. Super rough. I did the math in 7 seconds just then. I'm wrong about a lot of things. It could be a little higher. I did it based on, 2,000 pounds a ton and 50 pounds a panel. So maybe it's like 1.2 million.
Well, if our listeners have a comment about John's math, please chime in. I think our listeners should take you to task way more than they take me. So
Good. So it's cool. It's cool that we now have somebody with a good technique to take the polysilicon, extract it, and turn it into cells. Now, whether or not it's financially viable, whole nother conversation. Got no data, no information. At this point, it's probably not viable because this was done by researchers at PhDs. So it's, we got more work to do, but it's just good to see the progress.
for sure, for sure.
Now we're going to another continent.
Yeah, we're going to Germany.
I like, Germany's pushing EVs really hard, and it's good because they're big, and it's good because they're a car country, and it's good because they're technologically adept. And I think that's really, really important that Germany is doing this, because people will look at Germany and say, the engineers, the people who build cars, we're going to do what they do. And so them setting the pace, again, them setting the pace like they did with wind, like they did with solar. Now they're doing it with EVs in a challenging manner. They're fighting their own car industry, which is one of the things they're known globally. And it's something going on. And so here it's cool. So the ministry, the transport ministry wants 1,000 charging stations with multiple chargers at each location. The price is going to have to be below 44 cents per kilowatt hour, because that makes it lesser than the cost of diesel. And so that second little nuance, I just like the fact that they're going to legislate that it has to be this price and cheaper than diesel. It's just cool. It just means that, they're going to add some regulation, but they're going to make it work. Now, it should be easy. In fact, I pay like 30 some cents per kilowatt hour to Tesla supercharger, 50% more than I pay at home in the Northeast. Maybe not 30 some, only once or twice 30, upper 20s regularly. But that's still cheaper than gas. So 44 cheaper than diesel? I know diesel's cheaper, but that's cool. It's good enough.
So the headline is Germany launches tender to quickly expand countrywide e-charging network. That word tender to me sounds like they're issuing an RFP. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Next time you go to Germany, maybe not next time, but the time after, you're going to be able to easily get around the nation with your car.
Yeah. Is 1,000 charging stations a big number for a country the size of Germany? I don't know.
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is that I've read that California is going to need like 1 million. And Germany's got more people than California. Let's see, how many people in Germany? I think it's I always thought it was like 60 million, 83 million. There we go. And they're double the size of California, but cars owned per German. So Germans own fewer cars in the US, I would guess, but who knows? 46 million cars for 83 million people. So, for every 100 for every 100 people in the US, there's 85 cars. So with Germany, 46 into 83, we're talking like 60 cars. So 1,000 charging stations, 3,000 charging stations is not going to cover the population, but these are public charging stations. So maybe they're going to be made to complement home charging stations. I don't know. They're going to need a lot more, but this is probably a good strategy to make sure that you have the ability to get home and back at a public charging station. To get rid of range anxiety, you might have to wait for 20 minutes, but you'll get home.
Yeah, the Northern Europeans are ahead of the US in general when it comes to EVs and EV infrastructure. The Norwegians have set a goal of phasing out ICE engine sales by 2030. And I think 80% of new cars are pure EVs now in Norway. Now, Norway's a tiny country, 5 or 6 million people, but they're stepping on the gas. And it's funny. I've been participating in a conversation on Clubhouse. If anybody hasn't gone to Clubhouse, check it out. What are you smiling about?
Did you hear what you just said about Norway? What they're doing?
What did you hear me say?
They're stepping on the gas.
Yeah, they're stepping on the gas.
They're not.
That is the one thing that really irks me about Norway is their economy runs on fossil fuels, right? They're pumping oil out of the North Sea, which is why they're so rich.
Yep.
And meanwhile, they are stepping on the energy transition faster than most. So it's a double edge, but we appreciate them leading the way on the energy transition. They just have to figure out a way to stop pumping the oil out of the North Sea and make the energy transition. So that's a tough nut to crack. Yes, they're going to get into offshore wind, and the oil platform technology does translate. I've been participating in a conversation with this group of Scottish business people, many of them from the oil and gas industry. It's a discussion room on the energy transition on Clubhouse. So if you haven't checked out Clubhouse, go there, check it out. There's discussions going on all different topics, including the energy transition. And these oil and gas engineers are concerned that their industry is going away.
Good.
And they should be. Their industry is going to go away. It's like being in the horse and buggy industry when the ICE engine came, right? And those transitions can happen quickly once the tipping point is reached. Right now, you don't see it, right? That it's going to be all EVs in 20 years, but it is going to be all EVs in 20 years. And the ICE engine is going to go bye-bye, and there'll be a lot of stranded oil and gas assets. We need oil and gas to do things. We should sip instead of guzzle. Let's talk about California, though.
So a few years ago, 2019, California signed legislation that all residential construction had to be coupled with solar enough to offset its electricity use. At that point, they stated their goal was to make all government buildings have the same requirement by 2025, and all commercial to have it by 2030. Well, looks like the building code department has decided to update their code very early, and starting January 1st, 2023, about a year and a half away,
yep,
all commercial buildings now are going to require solar. Now, I haven't gotten into the details of the legislation.
And batteries, right?
I haven't gotten into the details, so I can't really talk to the meat of it. I just keep seeing the headlines, and I read a couple key paragraphs. But the legislation is going to be very deep. And it's not legislation, it's the building code. So it's going to be like tens of pages focused on the solar and batteries. And they did talk about batteries with residential. So I expect there to be very significant language for the commercial as well. But nobody's broken down the legislation yet.
It says under the rules, businesses required to install solar and batteries must maximize on-site solar consumption and avoid electricity use during periods of peak demand when the grid is heavily dependent on natural gas fired.
Nice.
So they're trying to supplant the use of natural gas with solar and batteries, which is perfect. That's what solar and batteries are great for.
And they're literally stating that from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., somewhere in that window, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. during the September peaking period, summer peaking period in the early evening. That's when they want that solar and that battery to be discharging. Great idea. I got to delve into this now. I'm glad you pointed out the battery portion and the peaking portion. That's totally cool. I think this deserves a deep dive on PV Magazine because no one's written a really deep dive on it. So maybe you'll hear me doing that in a week or 3.
That reminds me that there was another story that I didn't have in our document that I wanted to talk about. And that is the world's largest solar powered battery system is now 75% complete in Florida. I'm going to put that on screen right now.
I don't like their wording.
You always have some complaint about my stories.
No, I don't. This one.
Just kidding you.
This one I dislike.
The Manatee Solar Project is an existing solar array.
Yep.
And I don't know how many megawatts of solar it is. It's a very large solar project, some hundreds of megawatts. But Florida Power,
75 AC, probably 120 DC. FPL always builds 74.9 megawatts AC. That's how all their systems are that size.
well, that's interesting because they're building a 400 megawatt, 900 megawatt hour battery.
Correct.
To pair with this solar array. And they're doing the same thing here, John, as California is doing with this other legislation, right? They're knocking down the use of fossil plants with solar and battery. And it's a good thing. And we should commend Florida Power and Light for doing this. We also need to push back on Florida Power and Light for trying to quash residential and commercial solar in the Sunshine State.
They're doing a lot more than that. They're backing fake candidates. It's coming out in the news now. I'm watching it. This company is they're assholes. Them and NextEra. It's the same company. They do things that are less than savory for the common person. They're 110% about their profits.
Yeah.
And they're whatever. So, and I don't like the way they word this. They're like, oh, we're building the biggest battery. It's not really the biggest battery. But whatever. They're doing a great job. I'm happy for it. I'm glad to see it moving forward. That's a great battery to be built. I just don't like their politics. I don't like
if 400 megawatts, and I'm with you. If 400 megawatts is not the largest battery, let's just talk capacity, right? What is the biggest battery that's either constructed or under construction? Do you know?
Well, I wouldn't talk about.
Is there a gigawatt scale battery that's under construction?
I don't know. There's the 1.5 gigawatt, 6 gigawatt hour Moss Landing that's got about 400 megs installed so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to talk about just the power as being the biggest. You got to account for the capacity. The energy capacity, so that both numbers have to be there. I always look at the number of hours because it's easy to add an inverter and make your inverter bigger. Because you could have a 500 megawatt inverter and let your battery output for 10 seconds. Who cares? That's a capacitor. So this one isn't that case. It's a 2-hour battery.
Yeah.
Which is cool, which is great, very important.
Yeah, it's a 900 megawatt hour battery. It's a good sized battery.
It's like the second largest when it's going to be done.
It's 300 football fields of battery farm. I found that statistic to be quite impressive.
300 football fields?
Yeah, that's what the article said.
Nah, not for the batteries. We can fit 200 megs per acre of football fields an acre.
40 acres.
40 acres of battery? That's very spread out. That's very weird.
That's what the story says. It could be another journalist smoking crack. Those journalists, you never know about those journalists, John.
I've actually chatted with Michelle and I've written for Electric. So, yeah.
So you don't think this is fake news?
No, it's not fake news. It's real. I just don't like their press techniques because I don't like them as a company. So I'm biased. They're doing good stuff and I'm just being a whiny punk.
Awesome. Love it. All right. We got a story, and this is going to be our last story. China approves renewable mega project for green hydrogen.
Cool piece of data from here. 465 megawatts of electrolyzers are to be built at the facility. I think in the article, they say that this year, globally, we're expecting 200 megawatts of electrolyzers to be built.
So they're going to build a 1.85 gigawatt solar plant, 370 megawatts of wind, and it will produce 66,900 tons of green hydrogen per year.
The electrolyzer piece was what, I mean, first off, 1.8 gigs. That's like the second largest single owner solar plant in the world that would be built if it was built today and the others were built. So that's cool as heck. And then a casual 300 megawatt solar farm tossed on. It's just like, let's do some wind too. So both of those are cool. The electrolyzer piece, though, that's what I thought was the neatest.
You mean 300 megawatts of wind?
Yeah, 370. Casual 370. Yeah, there you go.
Just a mere 370 megawatts of wind power. That's no big deal.
Yeah, but then the electrolyzer thing. This is them taking on the electrolyzer market aggressively and pushing it. And this project itself will double. And that's it right there, that paragraph.
Yeah, 465 megawatts of electrolyzers.
Oh, so sorry. So we're predicting 400 megawatts this year, 200 last year. These projects will install more than the entire global market this year. That's pretty cool.
This is thinking big. And I have to give China credit for that. They're going after the energy transition. They're not perfect. They're still building coal plants, which is pretty bizarre, but.
Right. That's progress is complex. Progress is complex. It's a transition. Got to figure it out.
Does it say who's going to be the manufacturer of the electrolyzers?
I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be a new factory that they're gonna build.
And that hydrogen, it references a hydrogen promotion industry, the Hydrogen Energy Industry Promotion Association. I wonder if that's a Chinese organization. It looks like it.
China has made hydrogen part of their primary push now. I think maybe they like it better than batteries. I'm not certain, but I think people like the physical fuel thing. And maybe we see that hydrogen can be used for many other purposes. There's a big steel factory that recently said they're going to go hydrogen in China, and pure hydrogen, not just a test run, but like the whole facility. So it could be that they're going to be doing this.
Yeah. We'll be talking more about green hydrogen on the Clean Power Hour for sure.
Yeah.
And was there one other thing you wanted to talk about before we close out the show, John?
Oh, I mean, there's like 10 things I want to talk about. Let's see.
You got to get ready for your meeting, bro.
I got meetings. You're right. Let's talk about Meyer Burger real quick, just because they're next and I like Meyer Burger. All I want to say is that they're sold out through Q4. They're still ramping, and I'm wishing them the best. And I hope they make some money so they can make my perovskite pro-silicon tandem solar cells. That's it.
So as our listeners know, Meyer Burger launched a line of high efficiency, low carbon, very high quality solar modules that are now apparently rolling off the line, and they're sold out through Q4 of 2021. That's, that's kind of no big deal, but given that they just launched, right? We don't know when these modules are going to be available in the US though, do we?
I was told as Q4 started, they would have some availability through CED Green Tech. But we'll see. We'll see if any actually gets here.
Yeah.
I know the sales guy was he was prudent. He's like, he goes, we're going to have a lot of competition for these modules.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right. Well, John Weaver, how can our listeners reach you?
Type commercial solar guy into Google. You'll find my webpage. There's a contact us on it. If you like Twitter, you can see all the weird news I share. If you like LinkedIn, I share a little bit there. Try to be an adult.
You've become more active on LinkedIn. I think I've influenced you that way.
Well, as I've been writing for PV Magazine, my goal is to post twice, 2 to 3 times a week on LinkedIn. Don't want to be too much because people are busy, but I do want to get some good data out there. I definitely share the podcast there because you asked me to. But my goal is to share 3 times a week on LinkedIn. That's a good goal. Hope, I get leads from LinkedIn. People, professionals, business owners are on LinkedIn. They're working. So
how often do you tweet?
I think I've tweeted about 50,000 times since 2015. And I once ran the numbers and it said about 20 times a day.
Wow.
I think the number is a little lesser, but it's close.
I try to tweet once a day if I'm lucky, and I try to post on LinkedIn once a day if I'm lucky. But for sure, we're posting all of the Clean Power Hours and solar podcasts on LinkedIn. You can find me, Tim Montague, at cesnrg.com/podcast, where you see all of our interviews, like the wonderful one we did last week with Frank at Cubic PV about Frank Mirlo at Cubic PV on direct wafer tandem perovskite solar technology. That was really cool. Thank you, John, for making that happen. And every week on Friday now is when we're dropping these videos covering the nuclear industry, electric vehicles, microgrids, the enemies of solar, as we discussed on this show, and occasionally SpaceX. I don't know if you saw that posting I made about SpaceX. They're, and I've mentioned this before, they're running into increasing resistance from nature lovers down there at Boca Chica because when their rockets blow up, they land in a nature preserve. So that's a bummer. I think it was a bad decision on SpaceX's part, honestly, to site a spaceport next to a nature preserve, because things blow up when you're going to space. But
they're not supposed to.
Well, I think that honestly, they do expect that.
Not anymore. I mean, they're past the blow up period. I think they're maybe the next time the big one goes up. Elon's probably saying, "Hey, we got a 12% chance of."
If the big one blows up on the launch pad, though, wow, that is going to be one big crater.
It'd be time to move.
Yep. Scratch that pad, huh? All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week. Please subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. You can also find us on all of the audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. So check it out. Give us a thumbs up. And please reach out to us. We want to hear from you. What do you want to hear about? Do you want to hear more John Broccoli? I think so. Have a great week, John.